What do you do when you find out your partner's been unfaithful? Or worse, when you suspect they're cheating, but you don't have proof? Over the years, previously as a licensed marriage and family therapist, and now as the attachment specialist, I have sat across from hundreds of couples, some sobbing, some seething, some completely numb, trying to make sense of the wreckage that an affair leaves behind. The truth is that affairs are rarely as simple as people seem to think that they are. They're deeply tied to our psychology, our biology, our attachment styles, and the ways that we've learned or failed to learn to connect with the people that we love most. In this video today, I'm going to take you behind the scenes of what I've seen in the therapy room and in my coaching practice. We're going to talk about why affairs really happen, how to spot the signs without falling into paranoia, and most importantly, what you can do to move forward, whether you're the one who was betrayed or the one who strayed. So first, let's talk about why affairs really happen. Okay, there's three primary things you need to know. First, and this is not very popular, but we'll cover it, is the unmet needs in the relationship. Now, under attachment theory, partners who have insecure attachment styles, whether they're anxious, avoidant, or dismissive, they are much more likely to struggle with unmet emotional needs. And I want to be very clear here. This is not a failing in the wounded partner who's been betrayed. This is not your fault that you got cheated on. Okay. I want to make this very clear. A lot of female partners in particular come in and say, he cheated. Why? Was I not pretty enough? Was I not having sex with him enough? When I say unmet needs, the first instinct usually is, I tried. I took care of his needs, right? Here's the thing. Unmet needs also means unspoken needs, invisible needs, secret needs. It's about needs that never got shared. Needs that were kept a secret or that nobody knows how to resolve. Infidelity stems from one partner feeling disconnected, undervalued, or unfulfilled. It can also stem from a person craving constant validation from others, and especially never being satisfied with accepting love. The disorganized style in particular has this issue, that constant anxious feeling of I'm not good enough, coupled with also nobody else is good enough. The constant push-pull dynamic, even inside of themselves that they feel, really rips them apart, so they need constant validation from other partners outside. It's a turmoil and a chaos in the loud, disorganized style in particular that really drives them apart from most of their relationship connections. And again, I want to make this very clear. The unmet needs usually is not one that the other partner who's been betrayed actively failed at and knew about. It's not, I didn't want to take care of you. It's, I didn't know about your needs or how to help you. Or even, it can be the partner who did the straying. I didn't know I had needs. I didn't know I could ask for them. I thought I wasn't allowed to ask for them. I didn't even know that these needs existed. I don't even know what oxytocin connection is. I don't even know what these bonds mean. It can be unfulfilled needs that neither of you understands, but it doesn't just happen. Affairs don't happen because of boredom. I want to be very clear. They don't happen because of boredom. Boredom itself is revealing an unmet need of some type. It's not just, I was bored. Now, from a biological perspective, that high cortisol that a lot of avoidant partners feel in particular, it demands soothing. And if a person has oxytocin problems from high levels of sympathetic nervous system activation, we've talked about this previously in my video, The Biology of Avoidant Attachment Style. If you talk about that and bring that nervous system up to maximum for avoidant people, blocks their oxytocin receptors, they cannot properly bond with other people. They can't get the GABA they need, gamma-aminobutyric acid, so they can't suppress their own cortisol level. All that they understand is bringing cortisol down through the plunging and binging of dopamine over and over and over. So to them, especially after the first 7 months when their dopamine dies with you, the partner who got betrayed, they don't know how to feel pleasure inside a relationship with you. Now, usually they resist temptation for quite some time, but then they dip in and out of dopamine binges outside the relationship with the mentality of, this will make me a better partner, this will make me a better husband or father or even wife, because I'm meeting this need, I'll have higher capacity, then I can come home and give you what you need. So it's rationalized and excused as a dopamine binge. To them, it's like going to eat at a restaurant without you. And yeah, you'll be a little mad when if you ever hear about it, but it's not that big of a deal. They don't understand the deep level oxytocin grief that somebody feels when it's revealed that their partner has strayed. And I want to make it very clear, novelty dopamine is highly addictive. Novelty dopamine is the first 5 to 7 months of a relationship with a person or a new partner, a new circumstance, something that feels fresh where your dopamine receptors haven't burned out on yet. In a long-term relationship, novelty dopamine is gone. It is supposed to be replaced with high levels of oxytocin, which drives an amazing libido and desire and connection for both of you. But again, avoidant attachment style won't be feeling that, and disorganized style is going to be fearful of it quite often. So they step in and out and in and out. Anxious people love it, but long term, if they're not getting it adequately, I've seen anxious people cheat at 10 to 20 years. They usually take a lot longer for the anxious person to cheat. Quite often, honestly, the avoidant person has cheated first. Avoidants are most likely to cheat in the first few years or even in middle years. Disorganized people are most likely to cheat in the earliest years of a relationship, sometimes even in the first year. Now, affairs, unfortunately, are also likely to repeat. Most of my clients who come in and admit that they've had affairs and say, Adam, help me, I need to stop this behavior. They've had multiple one-night stands, multiple short-term things. It was a dopamine binge here, and then a few months later, another dopamine binge, and another one step by step, because it hits that reward center of dopamine. That felt good. Nothing else has felt that good. I should remember this for the next time I'm in a time of absolute high-level stress. Again, remember that high-level cortisol for a purely avoidant person, they don't know how to regulate it. The only way to cool that nuclear reactor on the inside of them that's going critical is dumping an amazing amount of dopamine in, which means running away, having that connection with somebody, and then coming back after they've cooled down. This isn't the only way to do it, and it's certainly not the best, and I'm not advocating or excusing, but this is the biology that allows them to rationalize it and drives them to want it. And again, with the disorganized types, they need that flood of dopamine and oxytocin to feel like someone somewhere is giving them approval. The old approval from an old partner who's already done it is not enough. And as they sink into that connection, it begins to feel unsafe anyway, because yes, you approved of me at the start. Now we have to keep maintaining, and I have to survive this ongoing life, constantly maintaining, bonding, going and going and going. And it's never going to work. So now I need more validation that's exciting and more novelty dopamine and more safe oxytocin from a new source that isn't going to be corrupted and lose faith in me over time. It's an ongoing, constant battle. The second thing that you need to know about for why affairs happen is the difference between emotional and physical affairs. A lot of people don't even classify emotional affairs as affairs, but they absolutely are. Emotional affairs typically begin also with unmet emotional intimacy in the marriage. They usually involve deep, personal connections outside the relationship. It's a communication about feelings, about problem solving, about venting stress, about feeling heard, feeling seen, feeling cared for, feeling appreciated, feeling respected, feeling admired. Emotional affairs are huge. They happen a tremendous number of the time. Okay. Emotional affairs are unfortunately very, very, very common. It's when you feel very alone and you start connecting to someone else in a slightly inappropriate or very inappropriate way that should be reserved more for a partner inside a traditional relationship. And let me be clear here. I'm not talking about arrangements where people are okay with this happening. An affair is not, we have an open relationship and we're both in agreement with it. An affair is we have agreed to have a closed, monogamous, exclusive relationship, and I am violating that agreement without your knowledge. That's what an affair is. So having those types of intimate relationships on the outside where you are sharing needs, deeply co-regulating with somebody who is maybe a member of the opposite sex, most likely, and deeply, deeply, intimately connecting them with high levels of oxytocin that supersedes the levels of oxytocin you have with your spouse. When you are more emotionally connected to somebody else who is a viable partner for sex, that is where we classify it usually as an emotional affair. Okay? Pretty clear? Now, physical affairs, may or may not involve emotional attachment as well, but they primarily focus on the physical act. A lot of avoidant people do not fall into the emotional aspect of physical affairs. They find someone else that they can have a dopamine binge with on a business trip or a paid escort or something like that. They dopamine binge, then they go home and they feel like, okay, I had a really great meal that I can never tell my spouse about. I had a great fun experience that I couldn't have with them, and I did it there. And what happens in Vegas or Thailand stays in Vegas or Thailand. And now I'm back here, right? Totally disconnected. However, a lot of physical affairs and emotional affairs overlap, and many of them start emotionally before progressing to physically. These are the hardest for couples to recover from. I fell deeply in love with somebody, and then our physical love was a culmination of that love, and it has grown over a lengthy period of time. Again, this is the absolute hardest for couples to come back from. I will also say this. Men tend to rate physical affairs as being worse. Interestingly, women tend to rate emotional affairs as being worse. Both of them rate the combo as being the worst of all, but if you purely look at the opposite ends, women feel threatened by a man having an emotional affair with a woman more than they feel threatened by him having a one-night stand. And when we look at the biology of this, probably because if he's out emotionally connecting to another woman, it makes her vulnerable, her and her children vulnerable. He could start a family with that other woman. He could abandon her during pregnancy. He could abandon the children. He could make them physically vulnerable. And keep in mind, we live in 2025, yes, and I'm aware of that. But our brains still live in 12,000 BC, at the beginning of the Neolithic Revolution. We are still trying to catch up with the concept that we can have surplus corn and surplus wheat. So the idea of, hey, we're in 2025, those rules don't apply anymore. No, they absolutely do. This is why women rate emotional affairs so highly. And this is why a lot of women will be angry at a man for an affair, but she will be vengeful and savage and demand the head on a plate of the woman because she is a threat. Make sense? Men, on the other side, physical affairs, massively high. Why? Well, biologically, the man is not the one carrying a child. So he has to be fairly convinced that the woman he's with is only going to have his children, so that when he invests resources properly, that they are going to his children and that he is adequately reproducing. There's a number of reasons that this might be, but it's exceedingly common in the animal kingdom, especially among mammals, for males to go in and make sure that their babies are the only babies in a number of ways. Don't ever watch lion documentaries if you don't want to talk about this, because it's very uncomfortable. But men want their children to receive their resources, by and large. Amazing stepfathers notwithstanding. It makes sense that men would prioritize physical loyalty while women prioritize emotional loyalty. But again, to be very clear, neither side is like, yes, the other side, the other type of affair is great. Go have those affairs. No, both hate both, but each one hates a different type more. And again, the combo of physical and emotional, very difficult to come back from, because you have fully fallen in love with and embraced that love with another person. And the third piece of why affairs happen, and I want to make this very clear, is external pressures and stressors, okay? The impact of life transitions. A lot of couples, unfortunately, go into a crisis. A child may pass away. A spouse may get cancer. You may lose a job. Some massive transition happens during the course of their life. And if they haven't adequately vasopressin bonded prior to this event, instead of turning toward each other and working as a couple, they're more likely to turn away, try to solve things themselves, and then connect and vent and bond with people outside. This is why a lot of times when a child dies, a wife gets cancer, that something like that happens, a man will bond with his female assistant, a female coworker, be venting to her, be working with her, and then all of a sudden that turns into an affair. And a lot of people say, how could he have cheated on his wife when their child just died? How could he have cheated on his wife when she got cancer? And yes, it's not a good thing. I'm certainly not advocating for this or excusing it. But biologically and hormonally, he didn't adequately bond to his wife through vasopressin, so his brain didn't see her as a helper during stress. He pulled inward and then opened up to someone else and formed an emotional bond and an emotional affair, and his brain pushed him to desire that other person more, and then dive into that as stress relief and as reassurance. That's the biomechanical symptoms of having an affair through this process. And women can do this too. Women can definitely do this. The time when I see women do this the most is when she's been trying to work on the relationship for a while. Maybe he's more avoidant and resistant, and she's frustrated and upset, and maybe she joins the support group or makes a friend or has a friend who says that he had a wife who was avoidant. And they start to bond through venting, through sharing frustration, or even trying to find solutions. And all of a sudden, she starts forming a deep emotional connection to him through vasopressin bonding and through those external stressors as well. Especially seeking that vasopressin bonding with someone who helps you through that challenge. The cliche CEO of having an affair with his assistant, for example, it comes out very, very strongly. Another factor is unresolved trauma. Individuals with unaddressed childhood wounds or past relationship betrayals, they may unconsciously recreate patterns of that abandonment or self-sabotage. So the previous relationships where you got deeply wounded and now you're afraid to ever connect to somebody ever again, I've seen situations where the person turns that around and says, I'm getting too close and it scares me. I need to prove that I'm not overly bonded to this person. And they go have an affair and then say, oh gosh, what have I done? But I've seen that pattern happen as well. So it's not purely just what's happening between two people. In fact, it's very rarely purely what's happening between two people. There's all these external factors come in. And I will also say this, I've never seen an affair happen without some person having attachment issues. Securely attached couples just tend not to have affairs because, again, there's no unmet needs. The external pressures are managed. They're properly vasopressin bonded by working together continuously, and they're not interested in emotional or physical connections with other people. They're interested in staying connected and bonded together. Now, is it never, ever, 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 ever the case that anyone has ever actually got bored in the 40th year of a marriage and then strayed? No, and I'm not saying that. And also the presence of alcohol can vastly increase these problems because it reduces your inhibitions, stops you from thinking clearly, shuts down that prefrontal cortex, and then you can wake up the next day and say, oh my gosh, what have I done? But why do affairs, full-on affairs like this happen? Everything we've just talked about. This is usually what leads to it. So anyone out there right now who's been watching, who had an affair and said, why did I do this? I am appalled at myself. I hope so far that this has helped you understand unmet needs, stressors, hormones, neurotransmitters. It's not an excuse by any means. I'm not here to say, it's cool, don't worry about it. No, this is a deep concern. But I hope this gives you some understanding into the gaps that happen so that you can fill them, so you can solve these issues. And if you were the person who was cheated on, I hope this has given you some understanding as well, that it wasn't you. It wasn't that you didn't wear your makeup right. You didn't have sex enough. You didn't give the right gifts. You didn't compliment enough. That wasn't the issue. The issue was all these unmet factors that you probably had no idea about or didn't know were even a problem. So let's talk next about how to spot an affair without becoming paranoid. This will help for if you've been cheated on. You say, how do I know it won't happen in the future? How can I know that they are not doing it? Or if you're right now maybe being cheated on, or maybe you're just confused and concerned. Again, maybe your former partner cheated on you and now you're afraid. Watch for these clear signs. Number one is behavioral changes you've got to spot, especially increased secrecy. Guarding their phone, changing passwords, being vague about their schedule. All of these are signs that they're keeping something inside that they don't want you to know about. Shifts in intimacy, a sudden disinterest in pushing back, or, strangely, an unusual spike in romantic gestures, sometimes guilt-driven as compensation, but sometimes an avoidant partner will go out, have a deep emotional affair, learn about oxytocin bonding from it, and then run back to you and try to flood you with oxytocin bonding because now they want to share it with you, but they haven't really understood what that's going to look like since they've been having maybe multiple physical affairs out there. They're trying to recreate this good feeling with you because all they understand is dopamine. They don't understand the deep nuance of oxytocin bonding yet. And so they try to rush back and initiate it. Look for either, again, that disinterest or the spike. Emotional distance is another one. Less engagement in shared conversations, less shared interest, less interest in you, fewer family activities. They're even pulling maybe away from your kids or from your in-laws, from everybody. They're pulling inward. and away from other people, even friends, maybe, to be honest with you. They're pulling away from the people in their life and they're pouring their energy somewhere. Where is it going? Pretty clear indicator. And a really big one, and honestly, a lot of people see this, but they try to just kind of dismiss it. Over-connection with a member of the opposite sex. And I mean real over-connection. Sudden and intense increases in their relationship as they text late into the night or every day. They are constantly texting with that person and you don't have access to their messages, and it's not a shared texting thing. This is not me saying that you're never allowed to speak to a member of the opposite sex. And I want to be clear about that, but one-on-one secret conversations that are constantly ongoing and emotionally engaging. This is where it begins to overtake the emotional intimacy that you share with a spouse. This is where things usually get very inappropriate. And a lot of people will argue with this right now in the comments. You're welcome to drop down and say, Adam, you're wrong. But this is where a lot of emotional affairs start. Then something goes tough in life and you have that vasopressin switch and you turn immediately to that deep opposite sex friend. And all of a sudden, man, we're doing some things that we are shocked about. And then what do we do next? So that's behavioral changes, but key indicators in communication to watch out is next, and especially avoidance of conflict. They might disengage from discussions to avoid exposing inconsistencies in their behavior. Frankly, avoidance of conflict at all throughout the course of the relationship is a warning sign. Doesn't mean they're cheating, but they're avoidantly attached, which does raise the risk levels massively for cheating because, again, the dopamine binges and the low oxytocin. Language cues to look for: overuse of just a friend, just a friend, just a friend, or deflecting with defensiveness when questioned. You're insecure, you're the problem. They're going to push back on you and they're going to make it sound like you're an issue. But here's the problem is if you're uncomfortable, there's an issue. Whether they are inappropriate with that friend or not, they're acting like an addict. And which means they are emotionally bonded to that person, oxytocin, dopamine. They are addicted to that person and you're trying to take away their addiction, which is why they react with anger. It's not usually, I got to hide this. It's how dare you take away the one and only thing that makes me feel good. It's an addict level behavior that's indicating an affair, or at least that an affair is coming. So be careful. One thing I want to say very clearly here is trust your intuition, but verify. Gut feelings and evidence. These are very important pieces, okay? Intuition can be a great starting point. Avoid jumping to conclusions without tangible evidence. This is not me in this video saying, okay, if your partner has ever looked somewhere else or covered up their phone, they are instantly cheating on you. No, that's not the point here. But trust your intuition. If something feels off, something is off. What is it? Having conversations about it, solving the problem. If they're not cheating, they should be working with you to solve the problem. And that doesn't mean that they're cheating if they're not solving it, but that's a pretty good test of if your relationship is actually sound. Here's a couple actionable steps. Journaling out the behavior patterns. Okay, it might sound creepy to write down when your partner is doing weird things, but if you're really concerned, start writing it down so that you can actually keep an accurate record. You might disprove yourself. Then again, you might see a pattern that is very important. You might need some professional help for clarity. I have some couples or even individuals come in and say, I'm afraid of cheating. Why? Because my last 4 partners cheated on me, and now I'm afraid this partner is going to cheat on me. Okay, do you think they are? Yes, because last Thursday they wore black socks and they never wear black socks. Okay, we should talk about that, right? Clarifying, gathering information. Maybe you need somebody who can help you really determine if these are worries or if they're paranoia. And then addressing your concerns calmly. You need to be having a conversation with your partner. If they can have a reasonable, honest, calm conversation with you and say, no, obviously something is upsetting you and I want you to feel okay. What can we do to help you feel okay? Do we need to put a limit on this relationship, this friendship I have? Do we need to have that friendship in a shared group where all 3 of us are in that chat group so we can all be talking? Do we need to go out on experience and have dinner with them and their partner? And so it's a double date with them instead of just me and them all the time. What can we do? How can we help you feel more comfortable with this? Let's get appropriate. Now let's get into the real meat and potatoes here. What do you do if you suspect or discover an affair? Absolute initial first steps to take that I wish all of my clients who came in did first was stay calm and grounded. Okay, reacting with anger or emotional outbursts usually only escalates the situation and makes resolution harder. Even if you discover the affair, the worst thing you can do is get really, truly angry. This doesn't mean don't get angry or that you're bad for being angry. It doesn't mean, but it does mean don't fly off the handle. Don't explode. Don't blow up. You're going to regret that later. Whether you try to get back together with them or not, you're not going to like the way you handled that. Again, you have a right to be hurt and angry, but I don't recommend you do it, partly for your own sake. And then, number two, I really wish people heard this, gather evidence respectfully. Confirm your suspicions without breaking the trust irreparably. Consider some professional assistance if needed. And I say that with a little bit of a grain of salt, but be careful about how you do this. I have people come in and admit to doing deeply illegal things to try to discover affairs. Now, even if you do discover an affair, you have now done something deeply illegal. Does one excuse the other? Some people will say yes. Some people will say they had an affair, so anything and everything I could possibly do is 100% justified. And I will say that that is not the case in any way, shape, or form. And this really just means that you have two people who don't respect boundaries inside a relationship. There are two people at fault now. Make sure that there is only one person at fault in this relationship, okay? Do not go illegal. Don't even just breach trust. Do proper, healthy, legal things, okay? Gather evidence, but do it respectfully. Now, the confrontation conversation is incredibly important, okay? You must use clear, direct language. As an example, I've noticed some changes in our relationship that concern me, and I'd like us to address them together right now. Focus on clarity, not accusation. The goal is to understand, not necessarily at this point to assign blame. I have seen this happening, this happening, this happening, and this happening. All of this is deeply concerning me, and it makes me, and frankly, you can say it makes me suspect something is going on. And you could say whether or not it is, this needs to be dealt with because I can no longer sustain these things. This is upsetting and concerning. Now, quite often, one of two situations present. One, the person has been emotionally disconnected through most of the relationship. They haven't actually built emotional intimacy with you. They've never really opened up, and they haven't worked with you as a partner. And now they may lie. No, everything's fine, and try to cover. Part of your evidence chain is the fact that the entire relationship has been an issue. And now you push on this and say, regardless of if there's an affair happening or not, maybe I don't have evidence yet, all of this is deeply concerning, and it's reached a point where I now truly doubt this, and that is a problem. We can't shout me down and tell me to stop having feelings. We need to fix all of these issues quickly and have a plan now. I can't live like this anymore. We need to fix this. Let's work together. Sometimes this will actually compel a confession at this point of the affair. Sometimes this will just lead to them pushing on it and saying, I don't want to. Sometimes they get really combative here at this point, and it starts showing that they, honestly, at this point, that there's a lot hiding underneath, to be honest with you. If they get that combative at this point, when you are deeply, deeply considering that there must be an affair happening and a long-term history of this pattern already, really bad sign. Now, the second thing, though, that can happen is quite often, a partner will confess at this point and say, you know what, you're right. I've been wanting to say something about it. I haven't known how to tell you. There has been something. And they won't be very forthcoming at first because it's frightening to them to share, but they will slowly start opening up. And this is most of what I see with couples who are at least reasonably healthy to some extent. They're more ethical. They're not massively narcissistic traits and massively dysregulated and really angry and fighting constantly. When it's peaceful and healthy and calm, this is usually the pattern. As you confront them and say, look, I know something's going on. It's been uncomfortable for a while, but I know something's happening. We need to fix this. And they'll say, okay, you know what? I do need to tell you there is something. There has been something, and I will tell you. A lot of times it's a lie of omission. You never asked, so I didn't technically lie by not telling you. Pushing on it like this and compelling a yes or a no. Is there an affair happening? Are you interested in someone else in some way? Has a physical or emotional affair happened? Asking that. Has a physical or emotional affair happened? Not is happening, because they'll say, no, not currently. You need to sometimes pin them down. A lot of good, ethical partners who are dopamine binging and trapped in this cycle, not to victimize them here, not to excuse it, but that's where they're at. They've done things they dislike and are not proud of, but they've done it in the name of being a good partner for you to have emotional capacity, things like that. What they will usually do is try to find a way not to answer, but when you make them answer, they usually won't lie. This is usually where the relationship is more salvageable, okay? As if they come clean on it, more salvageable. At this point, if you've got a confession or you've got some evidence, you've got access to their phone, you've seen the proof, they've admitted it, whatever it may be, okay? You need to evaluate the state of the relationship. You need to evaluate if this is even fixable. Here are some very specific questions I look for and ask of my coaching clients when I see if a relationship can be fixed after an affair. Are both partners willing to work on the relationship? What systemic issues led to the infidelity? Did they respond respectfully to your concerns? Did they defend and continue their secrecy or their inappropriate friendship? Do they prioritize the relationship or their own desires and freedom? Are they taking responsibility? Their language, are they changing for you or for them? They should be changing for them. Who else are they bringing in for accountability as they go forward? Meaning, who else are they telling? A friend, a confidant, a mentor, a coach, their sister, a trusted ally, a priest, a pastor, a religious person, somebody for accountability, so it's not just secretly between you and them. Who else are they bringing in to fix this? So next steps after an affair has happened and you've actually determined that this person is worth sticking with. Okay, you actually want to fix this. Rebuilding trust is absolutely mandatory. Okay, you have to set transparency expectations, shared schedules, open communication about whereabouts, accountability for actions. All of these are important, but not to the extent where the wounded partner becomes the warden, constantly policing the other person and keeping them in prison. Okay, and to fix that, yes, at the beginning, I need to be transparent about what I'm doing, but reaffirm the commitment. Both partners need to express their willingness to rebuild the relationship. They need to be saying, in particular, I'm changing for me. I don't like who I have been. I am bothered by this behavior. It has haunted me. I must change for myself and for our children, for going forward. Even if we don't stay together, I need to change. That's the language you need to be listening for. They need to know, and you need to know, that they actually want to change and are bothered by that past behavior. This sets a more permanent change and not you policing them. They need to be self-policing and then getting that accountability from someone else outside the relationship. If you're the wounded partner, it shouldn't have to double on top of it where you now have to keep them faithful. That should never be the case. That will never work. That will never heal the relationship. Every single time I've seen someone be serious about fixing an affair, they bring in a friend, mentor, parent, etc., whoever, and get them involved. They have meetings and check-ins to be accountable so you don't have to police them. It is impossible to rebuild a marriage while the one wounded partner is being the constant police. Then address the root causes of these issues together, okay? Explain, for example, why they felt this happened. Why does each one of you feel it happened? Yes, it's a painful conversation. Are you capable of painful conversations together? Maybe you need to do this in coaching and have a guided mediation session. I have a lot of people come into my coaching practice for this, and we unpack why it happened and keep it focused as a productive conversation. You need to learn that safe conversation and honest communication together, okay? Absolutely mandatory to be able to have those conversations, and maybe you need a coach. Myself or my certified attachment coaches can help you. The attachment repair program that we run also shows you how to address the underlying causes that led to the affair in the first place. Those secret unmet needs, unspoken needs, unknown needs, or the dopamine binges from stress, or the lack of oxytocin bonding, or that constant ongoing fear with a disorganized type who needs endless validation. Repair your attachment. Okay, I've got the most hands-on program dedicated to real lasting change to help you get through that. So if you're concerned and you need to fix the issue, repair the trust, and get accountability from somebody else, come in, let us help you with that. For partners out there who were the one who cheated, Okay. I'm not here to verbally abuse you like everybody else probably will. You don't need that from me. You don't need it really from anybody. You probably feel awful enough. If you're watching this video, you're probably not off laughing in a corner about how you got away with it. Okay. You're here because you don't like what happened. Number one, you need to understand the impact of your action. Okay. Recognize the pain caused without becoming defensive or justifying. And the point here is not for you to grovel. Groveling is not the goal. What needs to happen is, hey, what happened bothers me. Here's not an excuse, but why it happened, the chain of events. Here's the gap that allowed this to take place. Here's what I'm going to be doing to fix that gap. And I'll have ongoing meetings and updates with you so you see it. And in the meantime, what can I do that's going to help you feel comfortable? I recommend this. Is this good enough? How can I help you going forward as we work through this process? That right there is the proper language and the proper approach. Not groveling, not 50,000 apologies, not spending the rest of your life in servitude. It's building resolution to the gap, fixing the gap, and being willing to answer some difficult questions and provide clarity. I do usually tell partners, don't give excruciating levels of detail about what happened, because then the other person holds on to them as ongoing mental images, but they're demanding answers. Tell me everything, every single physical detail. That's not usually helpful. What they're trying to do is understand why it happened, and they're hoping some of those details will help. It usually makes things worse. So there's ways to handle those conversations as you move forward. I can show you that if you need some coaching. Just step in, we'll get it taken care of. But you're going to need to take accountability and to really change who you are. You cannot continue living in relationships the way you have. That's what led to the affair. So do the inner work, okay? Explore your triggers. Work with a specialist to uncover why you chose infidelity and how to prevent those future lapses from happening. Then rebuild yourself. Focus on becoming a partner capable of creating trust and intimacy. Get accountability from two people outside of your partner. Check in with them. Have conversations. Maybe one's a coach, a priest, a friend, your sister, people that can keep you accountable, that you check in with them, that your partner can trust them, and thereby you borrow that trust with them as you go forward. And then over time, develop a plan for the person you want to be and present that plan to your partner and then show them as you walk forward through it. Again, this is not to get their approval, and it can't smell that way. It has to be, this is who I want to be and who I'm going to be. And this needs to continue for at least a couple of months. I'll be honest with you, 90 days, you can rebuild so much trust over the course of even a month, but 90 days is a real big test for couples if they're going to make it or not. 90 days of the partner who did the straying, building themselves up continuously and growing an entirely new life to live a whole new way versus collapsing back into it after about 3 weeks. I have what I call the 3-week test or the 4-week test. This really proves and bears out quite often when someone's going to stray again or when they're going to actually get better. Rebuilding your marriage, your relationship, even yourself starts here. Okay. I do offer, again, private coaching for couples. So if you're committed to saving your marriage, my private coaching program offers tailored strategies to help rebuild trust and intimacy. I've been able to help thousands of couples, first as a marriage and family therapist, and now as a private coach. And I want you to go on my website, adamlanesmith.com. You're going to find testimonials there about happy couples I have helped come back, not only from the brink of affairs and disaster, but even divorce and despair. You can make this work if you're both willing to. You can rebuild from affairs and make their marriage better than it has ever been. Now, I want to make this abundantly clear. It has to be the truth that both partners want to make it work. If that's the case, nothing can stop you from making it work as long as you get the help that you need. Any marriage can be saved as long as both people are willing to do it. And there's definitely some of you that are going to be moving on alone. Maybe you're the partner who got cheated on and you just can't do it, or they left you for the other person. And now you wonder why you allowed this to happen to you, why you chose that partner and stayed. Maybe you're the partner who strayed and the other person says, absolutely not, I'm out. And you need to understand why this happened so you never make this mistake again. I want you to know that the attachment repair program is built for you. It creates secure, lasting love in your next chapter. And I would love for you to come in and join us, me and my coaches in there, so that we can show you how to make sure you are the person you have always wanted to be going forward. You never have to go through this again. And we're ready to help you. My heart goes out to everybody dealing with an affair on either side. Please, please, please search your heart. do some soul searching, have some conversations, get some support from the people around you. And if you need help, drop down into the description below. You're going to find my links to resources and programs. I'm also on adamlanesmith.com. You can join me there. We are happy to assist. We've helped so many couples come through affairs. And I want to make this very clear one more time. An affair does not have to end your relationship. If you are both willing to work on it and improve, you can build a greater marriage in the second half than you had in the first, because it will never lead to an affair again. So please let me know what you need from me. If this video has been helpful, or if you have questions, drop a comment below. Like, subscribe, sign up for the next live stream and come join us there. And remember that we are always here to help.